Before we get into this week's video, there is a little bit of sad news. Now, usually I write an opening sketch or an opening bit as a little touch of comedic value. And since this video is talking about weird ways to measure and gauge things in the miniature painting world, we're going to bring that into gaming. The original plan was to create a reenactment of gameplay, and to make our American friends feel a little bit more welcome, we were going to be measuring in cheeseburgers. And we did have everything set up and prepared to film. Unfortunately, the cheeseburger did not make it. In this difficult time, we ask that you respect our privacy in this process, and we will be taking no further questions about what happened to the cheeseburger. Thank you. In miniature painting, we seem to gauge effort and outcome in weird ways, either by time invested or quality level. Time is the strangest one. We have this little thing where we equate time invested into a measurable outcome and then kind of pair that with effort spent. When comparing a volumetric style against the 5-step heavy metal style, there were a few snarky comments saying that they wouldn't want to put that kind of energy into 50 to 100 models. Which is fine, you do you. But that's gauging time involved and effort invested instead of factoring in outcome. If you said you wouldn't want a whole army painted like that because stylistically is not your thing, that would actually make more sense. This is also fine. Theoretically, we decide quality level before we start painting. Competition and display painters do this when they have a purpose for the model, and gamers, they kind of already start with a purpose because gaming. So the real question is, where do time and efficiency come into painting, and what variables are there that affect these decisions? To try this out and honestly just paint something cool, because let's be honest, you're not here to stare at my head for the next 20 minutes. We're going to paint a bounty hunter from Infinity and loosely set around 2 hours to have this finished. This isn't a challenge, it's just another experiment. Now I'm going to be completely honest, I didn't think this through a lot. So obviously we kind of went back to default with Synthwave. We already know that the colors work together, what colors they're going to be, everybody's happy. And don't worry, this is the only time I used an airbrush, and there was actually a reason for the airbrush this time. And it's not overly what you think, it wasn't for the blending at all, because this whole thing could have been wet blended just as easily. But wet blending does take a little bit more concentration than, just kind of spraying stuff out with the airbrush, and I needed some time to think through what the next few steps were going to be. So in the time that it takes to spray, flush out the airbrush, spray again, flush it out again, and then clean up the overspray, it kind of gave me just that little bit to come up with a plan. As far as the actual application goes, everything got sprayed down with Regal Blue, and then we just came in with Wicked Pink from mostly the top. And I say mostly because even though it was the front section that got, almost an opaque coverage, I did come back into the sides just to feather out the blends, just that tiny bit. As much as we wanted the bike itself to read as pink, we still wanted to kind of ease it back into that saturated blue shadow. And yes, this is just blue tack. Blue tack is fantastic for holding miniatures down on a paint handle or just covering something up. For masking something like this, I do use an older blue tack that's lost a little bit of that tack because it's got extra paint in it. This way it won't strip layers or pull anything apart. Because airbrushing saves so much time on some of the bigger areas, we have a little time spare to do a little extra on the bike. And if I'm getting a little extra, it's going to be leopard print. So you know how I said we were going back to default? Yeah, I wasn't lying. The actual leopard print pattern itself is pretty simple. Little C's, little dots, bang, you have your pattern. The thing I tend to play around with a little bit more is the undercoat. This time around, we're using Sunburst Ochre as our base coat. And again, because we didn't really have a plan, I was just kind of running around seeing what details would be, fairly decent in a leopard print. The big thing was just trying to space everything out and make it feel balanced. Then we're going to bring in Wastelands Clay, and here's where the blending kind of starts. And there is absolutely no ratio for this. I literally just kind of slapped on Wastelands Clay, picked up a little bit of that Sunburst Ochre, and feathered it back through. It's a wet blending. It's wet blending. But to be completely 100, I didn't put a lot of time, energy, and focus into making this silky smooth. The cool thing about leopard print is because the design or the print itself is so busy, you don't really take notice too much of what's underneath it. It's a natural camouflage pattern, and right now, it's about to camouflage me not really giving a shit. While the Wastelands Clay was still a little bit wet, I did come in with a touch of Ivory White and just kind of made it look like I was doing some highlights. And then of course our pattern itself. This is just black, making little C's, little dots, bang. If you keep changing the direction of the opening for those little C shapes, it makes it feel a little bit more organic and random. And then of course the little dots are really just to fill in space, but you still want to leave a little bit of a gap between everything so it doesn't all mush up, it actually reads. And yes, you do want a fairly sharp brush point for this one. Okay, here's the thing, I really like non-metallic metal, but it can take a long ass time to do decently. The quick fix would be to use metallic paint, but here's my issue. True metallic paints use real-world light on real-world surfaces, and in this case the real-world surface is pretty small, so it's going to be real-world light on a real small thing. And for scale miniatures where they're supposed to be in their own kind of universe or atmosphere, it doesn't quite feel right to me, especially if I'm controlling light placement on every other surface. But since we've only got about 2 hours to finish the whole thing and I'm not using true metallic paints, half-assed non-metallic metal is what's going to happen here. So non-metallic metal, or non-metallic metal. Triple negative aside, let's look at how to fake non-metallic metal. The two big ideas to make non-metallic metal readable is contrast and light placement. So all we're going to do is take each and every section and just make a little gradient on each. As a base coat, we're going to use the darkness. And to start building up the mixes for our little gradients, we're just going to add a little bit of grey castle every single time we jump up. As long as we can keep the contrast between dark and light and then make all of those little reflective points, make it kind of feel like it's all pointing in one direction. Remember, highlights should point at the light source. Everything is going to come together just well enough to make it look like we did something. The thing that really helped us out here was the amount of detail on this section. Because we could keep starting our gradients over again and keep pushing those highlights into a similar direction, it really helped us sell that feel. Is it the most amazing non-metallic metal in the world? No. But it pushes the idea enough for recognition and readability. To do this properly, it probably would have been 2 hours by itself. After throwing on just enough to at least infer non-metallic metal, the front section was looking a little bare. And since the rider herself is going to be fairly detailed, it's going to be as bland as an all-white barbecue. But some quick edge highlights will probably do enough here. It's not about popping out detail, it's just filling in space. For this, I jumped into weird Elixar, and it probably was a little higher the jump if I'm being honest. But we're not going to stress the small stuff. And yes, I did freehand some hearts on here because as if this bike wouldn't have hearts. Also, yes, I should have done this from a different angle. I did have to come back and tidy that up. Alright, bike done, and we'll get to the rider in a minute. And no, it's not time for an ad. Obviously, the parameters we've set here are because this is a video. Sure, you can set a time limit at home, or you may only have a few hours to get something done, but setting such a short, hard deadline isn't overly common. This is kind of the double-edged sword when it comes to YouTube painting, especially in infotainment. Even though the premise isn't widely applicable, there's still something here that could be fairly helpful in other situations. A time crunch like this means you either have to cut corners or at least prioritize what you're going to spend time on, which is a skill set that's fairly useful when it comes to army painting. The last video was painting to a display level for competition and it was a single model. That same time investment into each model of a unit, say of 10, that's like 200 to 300 hours. Even for skirmish games and lower model count games, that's kind of insane. We'll come back to this idea later and see where we can trim some of this fat off. Alright, let's sort out the bounty hunter herself. Even though the black is the primer, it's still a usable color when it comes to application. So when it comes to base coating the Terrestrial Titan, I'm just going to be avoiding all the deepest recesses and all those little lines of detail separation. Well, at least as much as possible. If you can leave all that black in the recesses and have all your black lining done from the beginning, you're already winning. Yeah, I hate that rhymed too. To try and keep some semblance of cohesiveness between the rider and the bike, I'm going to bust out the same colours, so Regal Blue, Wicked Pink. But since we are using a brush for this one, and it was an airbrush for the bike, there is going to be a little variation there. And then for the highlights, we're jumping into Hydra Turquoise. Truth be told, I'm not overly concerned about the blending here. I did end up going back in with a very thin Regal Blue just to soften some of those layer lines and transitions, but it wasn't a huge deal. Blending is usually something that I do spend a little bit more time on, but again, we're on this time crunch deal. And when it comes to how I paint personally, blending typically does get the lion's share of time. But with the same idea as the almost non-metallic metal, the things that we're really looking for here is contrast and light placement. I'm not trying to make this look metallic, I'm just picking out the volumes. As long as we can get some color in there, define some shapes, and have something between highlight and shadow, we're golden. And back to this whole time crunch idea, the only thing that I'm actually looking for as far as quality and outcome go is around tabletop standard. I could have put 30 hours into this model, but that would have negated the entire premise of the video. And the quickest way to get around the blue was just what you're seeing here. It's sketching out the highlights, coming back in, and just softening the layer lines. Not completely blended, just enough to make you not hate it. Sometimes good enough is actually good enough. Alright, this time it is for an ad. You already know the usual in-game's Army Painter Heresy 5 deal. Still a thing. But for this one, we also have Corvus Belli, the maker of Infinity, Warcry, and legitimately the model that we've been painting in the video. A whole bunch of people have commented how the synthwave style would really be perfect for Infinity, so we up and did it. And thanks to Corvus Belli, we're going to be doing this a whole bunch more. Jumping back into that wicked pink, here is where the cohesiveness with the bike starts to come back in. 1, because it's pink, and 2, from how we're going to form the shadows. Because just like the bike, we're going to fade back into that Regal Blue. Keep in mind here, blue is an incredibly strong pigment when it comes to miniature paints. And it will absolutely overrun on that pink, so we only need a tiny little bit, and to be honest, that's probably still too much. So yeah, I did come back in with Wicked Pink again, just to kind of smooth out that transition again. And then, because we already had weird Elixar on the palette, I did come back in for just a little bit of extra highlight. And if you check out the little stripies on the pants, this is exactly what I was talking about before. Let the primer be your black line detail separation. Leaving it there does a lot of work that, we don't have to. Yeah, look, we're mostly talking about efficiency for tabletop painting. And there is going to be more on that. But on the flip side, there are people that paint for fun, competition, display, whatever. This is completely fine. And for this next part, we could probably throw gaming in there too. Because there doesn't always have to be a set goal in mind. Sometimes you just want to push pigments on a lazy Sunday, and to be completely honest, that's probably the enjoyable part of this hobby. It's also where cutting corners can actually add value. No stress, no pressure, just paint the cool thing because it's cool. Look at me being all insightful and shit. There is a lot of hair on this miniature. Not as much as my mother-in-law, but it definitely has its fair share. And because this is only for the tabletop, I am not painting each and every single strand individually. To get around this, we're going to treat the hair as basically a single shape. That flat out base coat was just all Hydra Turquoise. To infer some shadows, I made a little bit of a wash with some Regal Blue. These are going to go into the deeper areas, the recesses, those kind of things. But not between every single strand. To start building up some volume on the hair, I went with Turquoise Siren. For placement, we're going to leave the Regal Blue in the shadows, that Hydra Turquoise is going to take up our midtone, and this is going to sit on top as our highlight. And while yes, I am aiming a little bit more towards each strand to really pick out that highlight, it's still not a big deal as long as we're staying out of the shadows with this. If you look at the hair as a wave, we're really only highlighting the peaks and the crests. For the most part, we're only giving that one shape the dimension, we're not really picking out detail. Until we get to right now with Aquamarine. Again, not looking for single strand detail here. This is just going to act as that sheen of light that you get on smooth shiny hair. And because it's so light and bright, it gives us a lot more contrast with that shadow tone of Regal Blue. Alright, this cutting corners thing. Obviously, this depends on what kind of outcome you want. For display painting, 10 out of 10 do not recommend. But for tabletop, you don't need to go balls deep. You can, but you don't have to. And using this as an example, because it's not my finest work, but it was also never meant to be.
Say the line, Bart!
Not everything is going to be a masterpiece, and not everything has to be a masterpiece. Yeah! And with that in mind, as well as this whole time crunch thing, we cut back on things like using too many colors. When you look about this or think about it a little bit later on, you're really only going to remember and think pink and blue. Sure, there's leopard print details, but that's really secondary and it didn't add that much extra work. Another place that we cut some of these corners out, we're blending. Shadow, midtone, highlight, they're all there, and honestly, that's probably more important than getting some silky smooth blend to start with. It doesn't mean just slap and go, but it also means that you don't have to spend the extra hour or 5 to make it silky smooth. Honestly, when it's on the tabletop, it's not going to be appreciated anyway. Just paint to a level where you can live with it. Paint until you don't hate it is pretty sound advice, especially when it comes to faces. All we're going to do here is enough to make it feel like a face. A base coat of Moonstone Skin, a very, very thin wash of that same Regal Blue just to make it feel like it's got some shadowing in there, which is honestly just for some depth and dimension, and then just a little bit of Opal Skin as a highlight. This is definitely not going to be a part of that zoom in Instagram challenge. But we are almost ready to roll some dice. We're on that home stretch, the base. While keeping it simple, this is our last chance to really dictate the viewing angle. This is going to be a super easy wet blend. The Darkness, Ruddy Terra, and Moonstone Skin. It's literally just going to be smashing paint together until we get a gradient. The important part is the placement of that gradient. Some models can be a little confusing of whereabouts their actual golden angle is. So we're going to use this gradient to pull into the direction that we kind of want people to look at it from. And even though this is for the tabletop and a lot of people talk about, only seeing them from about 5 feet away, there's always somebody at every game that picks them up and shoves them right in front of their face. And now with us pulling a gradient in from dark to light towards where we want them to view it from, it's going to help with that first impression. They're going to get a nice, warm, little fuzzy positive feeling before they see all that dodgy blending that we did. And regardless, even then, all they're really going to say is, hey, that's pretty cool. Good job. As much as focusing on growth, improvement, and efficiency can be somewhat honourable, sometimes it also just doesn't matter. Drop a comment below and let me know, would you have done more or would you be happier with less? Massive thank you to InGames, The Army Painter, the best Patreon members in the world, and Corvus Belli. Big love, you filthy heretics.